Welcome to the West of Waterford podcast. My name is Josh, and tonight it's just going to be me, all by my lonesome. This is basically a quick show that we're going to do for you. Well, I'm going to do for you. The week in news. Just a few stories that we didn't get to touch on fully. It's very loud there. I want to turn that down. Just a few stories, yes, we didn't really touch on fully with the last couple of podcasts that I kind of wanted to. Didn't really get a chance to. And generally because the West of Waterford podcast, due to, other concerns, other considerations of other people who might be on it. That includes my dear sidekick and best thing that ever happened to me, Brittany. Not wanting to talk about certain issues that I really do relish the opportunity to speak about. I think we know where we're going with this one. This is obviously a little more politically charged, a little more politically motivated. Social norms, economic values, cultural stuff, stuff you wouldn't really necessarily hear on the West of Waterford podcast, except for this new segment. So hopefully I'll be doing this weekly, and you get to hear my real kind of unabashed thoughts. I will be trying to keep this FCC regulation because, let's face it, I do want a career at some point. I've been told I have a lovely speaking voice. Yes. But I'm not trying to throw it on, which I always am. So, let's get into the stories here, shall we? And we're going to get rid of the music now because this is a slightly different type of production. Although I'm not above using music incidentally if needed. So the first story, of course, happened Thursday. And I remember where I was Thursday. Do you? I was down at the bar, my local watering hole. I believe I've mentioned it many times. And I noticed on my Twitter a very interesting piece of news coming in. The United States has bombed Syria. Now, that's the way I saw it first. And it's like, wonderful. So, let's get into this. President Joe Biden, returns to American policy of no oil and no peace in the Middle East. Hot off the, historic peace deals that were being brokered due to former President Trump. And also the fact that we've had no new wars start in the last 4 years. Apparently, Joe Biden is looking at getting us back to business as soon as possible. It's wartime in the USA. Of course it is, Joe. Of course it is. He doesn't even know who he's bombed, where he's bombed, or where he is. He doesn't have a stutter. Can we please stop pretending that he does? The man's mind is going to oatmeal. It's going to oatmeal, people. The man doesn't have his mental faculties about him. So much so that also, as in a related story during the week, the Democrats were looking to get the nuclear codes off him, probably because he uses the same code as his bank account number, PIN card for his debit card. He probably doesn't even remember what that is quite rightly. He just knows there's 3 ones and he can't remember what the last digit was. So, I'm not going to pretend that President Trump was perfect when it came to foreign policy. There was a little hawing. There was that bombing of a Syrian base back in 2018, if I remember correctly. Could have been 2017. It was very early into his presidential career. I wasn't happy about it. I don't remember one conservative who really was particularly happy about it. I think that was very much one moment of unity, I think, for the entire country. One moment where we could actually collectively say, for a brief moment in time, Orange Man did a bad thing. But, he more than made up for it by, not pursuing any further, invasions, bombings of massive scale against civilians. I've read a few reports here and there that maybe there were some things going on out there. I'm going to have to look more into it. But now, you know what? This was then. This is now. I can't go back in time and research these on the fly, especially when I want to get a show like this put together. But I will admit that I'm not completely blind. My biases, whatever they might be, I'm not completely blind. But this president has thrown us into what could be a conflict, a global conflict, very, very quickly, within the first 30 days of his office. I think we were up to an official of 34 days. I believe on day 2, there was a convoy of American soldiers, a military attachment, that were sent into Syria. Those were the warning signs. Those were the warning signs. I saw it coming. This was really not a matter of will he or won't he. This, to me, was a matter of when. And quite honestly, I'm not surprised it took as long as it did. I would have expected it around this time frame. I probably would have given him an extra month or so. But he's throwing abandon to the wind, droning Syria, and reportedly killing 22 people. I guess when the bombs are with peace, unity, and love, that's okay. Never really did like that audience too much. Now, the media can spin this any way they want. But from the things I've seen, there's a couple of coincidences that you might be noticing. If you're able to put things two and two together, you can call this a conspiracy theory if you want. I will say it's just a theory. I don't think it's a conspiracy. It's just a theory. It's one that I happen to believe might be more than anything based on America's Middle Eastern interventionist history ever since the 80s, Iran-Contra, and all the way on up. This seems to be very, very close in proximity to the Keystone pipeline being shut down by Joe Biden. A move that cost this country tens of thousands of jobs and cost jobs to our friendly neighbours to the north, the Canadians, who ain't so friendly. Do you ever see a Canadian mounted? That's my one blue joke for the show. Good to get it out of the way. I believe that was a book that Delbert, or Del Grady, was it Del Grady? Planes, Trains and Automobiles. I believe that's the book he's reading at the airport. A Canadian Mounted. Wow, imagine the things you can pull out of your mind when you really have moments to think. And also alcohol. But yeah, so the Keystone Pipeline is shut down. America is now, and you could see it with the rising gas prices. 6 months ago, we were paying somewhere in the region of $1.95 to $2 for a gallon of gas. Here in Arizona, anyway. Now, if I'm remembering correctly, that's about what it was. About $35 to fill up your tank. We're seeing those prices inflate now to about $2.50, $2.60. I think I saw $2.73 the other day. These, and I know in places like California, they're going up. Even further, they're doubling. They are doubling on top. They're going to $5, $6. It's just a matter of time until we're going to be looking at $7 per gallon. You don't need to be driving a gas guzzler for this to affect you. And I think this is all down to, of course, well, I don't think, I practically know at this point. I think we all do. But this is down to America rolling in the regulations that President Trump had actually rolled back. So, score one for you EPA folks, you crusaders for all that is green and all that is living and scurrying through the earth that would probably bite you and kill you as soon as it look at you. We won't have a gas pipeline, an oil pipeline, whatever. We won't have the Keystone. I'm not entirely sure what it was again. I think it might be oil. Or, yes, oil. I might be wrong. Tell me in the comments. But we don't have that pipeline anymore. Well, oil, of course it'd be oil, wouldn't it? What am I thinking? Ugh. I'm second-guessing myself. That's not a good thing. So on top of killing tens of thousands of jobs and really, really peeing off the trade unions that had stumped for Biden during this last election cycle, it now means that the US has to look for oil from other sources. Because, you know, what does that matter? It's one Earth, isn't it? I thought we were all one Earth, but, you know, apparently we're still allowed to siphon oil from other countries. Of course, the pipeline going across the Middle East, going through Syria, of course. And now we're bombing and droning Syria. Sounds to me like we might be trying to protect our assets and maybe scare off Iran from, going after the oil. But in the interim, I think what we're going to do is annoy Russia. And the last thing we need now is Putin breathing down our necks about things, because we have a president who is completely ill-equipped to deal with any foreign leader. Our current president is not fit to deal with President Michael D. Higgins of Ireland. He is not fit to deal with him. And Higgins has no power. He's a figurehead from Middle Earth. Look him up. He's Michael D. Higgins. And the D is for dancing. It's an old joke. So, we've lost our energy independence. We are now going to be suckling at the teat of the Middle Eastern oil cabal. We're going to be paying money. And by the way, not only are we going to be paying money to make this stuff come to our country for more inflated prices, and, you know, when it heats up over there, we are going to see prices rise and fluctuate and fall and rise, but they're never going to fall realistically to the levels we had seen them in the last 4 years anyway. I think what we're going to see here, I just don't like the precedent this is setting. It's probably going to be a repeat of what happened before, but you know what? The historic peace treaties that Trump had brokered could possibly fall apart. We could see something with a vengeance over there. I certainly hope not. I don't believe people in the Middle East deserve to be droned, bombed, terrorized by their own religious compatriots, or terrorized by the United States of America. There is no reason for this. There really is no reason for this, except this is something that this government, this monolith, that stands as one and divides the rest of us into red and blue, and green and libertarian and whatever. But this benefits them. This benefits their backers. You know what? I wasn't a big believer in this a few years ago, but now I'm a regular true believer. I'm a regular true believer. Now, on top of this, as a citizen, Biden had a tweet. I want to say it was 2019 about Trump. He needs to. There needs to be a prerequisite of informing the American people and having the American people give their informed consent before taking military action in any nation. Well, he's thrown that aside, and not only that, he's also allegedly done the same for VP Kamala Harris. Kamala. He circumnavigated her. She found out secondhand that he had done this. Apparently she's annoyed, and I don't blame her for being annoyed. I don't even like the woman, but I'm on her side here. This is ridiculous. And I'm not even sure if Biden knows what he did. As I said earlier, the man's mental faculties are falling to pieces. And no, it's not a stutter. Look, I watched my grandfather, one of the smartest men I've ever met in my life, a modern day Leonardo da Vinci, as I would call him. I believe he was possibly the most intelligent being I've ever met on this planet. I am beyond proud to be his grandson. And he was not a political man by any means as well. Just made a joke about that earlier, that now that he's passed on, he probably voted for Biden, even though he's been dead for 2 years and, you know, is buried 5,000 miles away. But he was not a political man by in any sense of the word. He was a true observer of everything. To see a man like that, in his a man of that intellectual prowess, fall to pieces before your eyes from Alzheimer's, brain degeneration, to the point where, you know, he thinks the train is going to depart Waterford for Tramore in 15 minutes, and it'll probably be a little late because they're burning sod as opposed to the coal, because of the coal shortage. He was thinking of the 1940s, and that's what he thought his modern day was. And I remember just before I left for America, the last time I saw him, and he actually was, he told me about that. It's a very, very intimate part of my life, and I'd like to share it with you because I want to show that I am a vulnerable human being, just like anybody else. But you know what the difference is? and I'm going to get to this point. Difference is I think critically. I see Biden going the same way. I'm not the first one to point it out. He's going the same way as my grandfather. The only difference is I respected and loved my grandfather. Right. That out of the way. So, the big thing about the citizen having informed consent is really beginning to backfire. If Twitter is to be believed, if anything on Twitter to be believed, if anything on the internet is to be believed, and I very, very much doubt that a lot of it is, but what Twitter is a very good litmus test for a mood in society. There's a mood out there, and you can tell what the mood is simply by scrolling through a Twitter timeline. There's a lot of people who are having buyer's remorse about Joe Biden. There's a lot of blue checks, as we colloquially call them, who are covering for this idiot at every turn. And yes, I did call the man an idiot. You can call President Trump an idiot. I can call Joe Biden an idiot. Let's talk about it. Now, the problem is that these people supported Biden, campaigned for Biden, for what I can only see as back pocket bribes to get this man elected so that he could continue failed policies from the past that have been proven failures. But they make a lot of money for the right people. Promises such as $1,400 stimulus checks on day one of his administration. We're yet to see any of them. The erasure of student debt. He doesn't look like he wants to follow that one through. I'm okay with this. But the average Joe Biden supporter is not. The abolition of ICE. This is a big one. Defund the police, defund the abortions. No human is illegal on stolen land. Except that we are now a constitutional republic, a nation of borders and laws, and yes, some people are illegal. It's the way of the world. If you don't like it, go back in time. Get in a DeLorean, go back in time, and change it. That's what I say to you. Off you go. Bye. Oh, what a shame. I guess you were hit by one of those bombs of peace. So ICE, of course, are continuing to deport people. Again, I would actually support this. He's weirdly effective in his inaction. I'm not even sure if it's inaction. I don't know if you could call it that. And maintaining the cages, the children's cages that he and Obama built on the southern border. The one that Trump took the biggest, broadest hit for, because the media decided it was convenient to show you these conditions, which Trump actually did address and made better. And the whole thing about it is that when you have coyotes crossing the border, bringing children with them and posing as their parents, you have to separate until you can find out, is this child okay? Is this child in... Yes, the child is into America. The parents brought them here. You can't blame the child for this. So you have to violently rip them apart, as they say. No, you separate them till you figure out what's going on. Because at the end of the day, if a child is left with a coyote or whatever, a drug trafficker, anything that they will use the child as an emotional brownie point crutch to get into the country with, that child might not be safe getting across the desert. That child could be left there. Now, I don't know if you people out there know the difference between a child being kept at a detention facility and processed to be deported back to his national country, back to his home, and lying dead in the desert and being picked at by coyotes of the dog kind and vultures. Personally, I don't want the kids dead. I would prefer that they be returned, and you know what? That they come in legally. There's a path to it. There is a path that can be done. I will admit, it's difficult. I have a good friend myself. He had a difficult time getting into this country. He had to jump through more hoops than a lion at a Ringling Brothers circus back before animal welfare was ever a consideration. But he did it, and he did it the right way. What is stopping anybody else? And what is stopping the people who do come into this country the right way? from telling... No, they do step up. What am I saying? They do step up and say, no, you shouldn't be coming in here illegally. We came in here the right way, and you come in and you undercut us, and you make us look like fools. And I say that as somebody who's been told by very, very, very tolerant and liberal, unifying people, because I don't agree with you, go back where you came from. And I have been told that on a couple of occasions. How dare you come to this country and mess it up for the rest of us? How tolerant. Now, for the people who did vote for Biden, I do say this. I do feel sorry for you that you were brainwashed. You were spoon-fed. You were spoon-fed propaganda, disinformation by the mainstream media and politicians who you believe care about you, who really don't. The mainstream media don't care about you. This is all about a bottom line. It's all about a bottom line. This is corporatism run amok. This isn't capitalism, by the way, people. This is corporatism. There is a distinct difference. And corporatism can pretty much exist in any economic ideology. And you can take that to the bank. So, when you consciously vote as a low information voter, and I say low information, I don't say low IQ. I say low information. You don't seek out what you are voting for. You're happy to go along with the crowd. You're happy to go along with your feel-good moment in time. You're happy to bleat your slogans because they make you feel good, because there's somebody beside you doing the same thing. You're in lockstep. You react on your feelings. Feelings have taken a front seat over logic and truth-seeking in this country. And I mean, I can understand it sometimes. I can be quite an emotional person. Believe you me, I can be. It's one of my flaws, one of my fatal flaws, actually. But the problem is, that doesn't stop me trying to seek out the truth. So unless you were willing to do that, follow up, research, if you don't do any of that and go out and vote because you were told to vote away, you get what you deserve. But it is great to have America back in the Middle East, isn't it? I mean, these are peaceful bombs, we have to remember. These are peaceful bombs of love, caring, unity, tolerance. These bombs. Don't worry that your child is dead. Know that he died because unity is back. Compassion is back. Love is back. Don't you ever forget about that. Don't. This is the sound of unity. War is peace, and peace is war. Don't you forget it, people. If you applaud, you will be bombed. If you think for yourself, you will be bombed. USA is back, baby. America's back, man. Come on, man. Think about the people and what they've gone through in the Middle East. Think about it. Do they really deserve more of this? Do they not deserve to be left alone to build back their own societies better without us interfering? Because oil. Because we're the good guys. Yep. We're the good guys, all right. We had 4 years of no new wars, and now we are on the precipice of tolerance, unity, love, and compassion. I think I timed that one pretty well. My God, I could be I could be working for the Boston Pops. All right, that's enough of that. We are going to move on very, very quickly to the sports segment. Very rarely do sports. West Waterford Podcast isn't really a sports-centric show. But I do like to talk about things that are interesting from now and then, especially when there's a different take on it. I'm not just reading out the scores. Zlatan Ibrahimović and Lebron James have been having a war of words. Essentially, Zlatan, who's God, by the way, and he won't tell you, talk about him in any other way except that he is God indeed. Basically, essentially told LeBron, shut up and do what you're best at. Stop talking politics. Nobody really wants to hear about it. You don't know enough about it. That's essentially it. LeBron said, basically, that he would never shut up when things are wrong. That is a very good stance to take, except that LeBron constantly shuts up when things are wrong, especially when it comes to his Red Dragon, There's a sound in this world that LeBron loves to hear. Yes, that is the sound of LeBron's bank account getting fatter. So he's not allowed to say anything that would compromise that, would he? He's just not allowed to say anything that would compromise, Yeah, he's not allowed to compromise that kind of money. So that explains why, when things are wrong, like the sovereignty of Hong Kong at stake being annexed by China. Excuse me. In 2019, with the Hong Kong, the protests in Hong Kong. In fact, I believe the Lakers manager got fired over that. LeBron said he weren't educated enough to talk about it. He wasn't educated enough to talk about it. I don't know why I slipped into a certain way of talking there for that. But he wasn't educated enough to talk about it. LeBron apparently is. And he said, it's fine. It's no problem. Don't worry about it. China's in the right. China's in the right. Sorry, I got paid again. I gotta go. There's a reason that the NBA became very anti-Hong Kong and very pro-China. Not allowing, I want to say exporting people out of games who would hold up banners saying "Free Hong Kong." He won't talk about, the diabolical treatment of the Uyghur Muslim population in China. The fact that they are sent to concentration camps to be re-educated. He won't talk about that. There's a reason he won't talk about that. And try it again. Yes. The Rickshaw song. That's actually what I've if you all know D, who comes on the irregular program, D is of Chinese descent, which is why we watch him very closely when he comes into this studio. But he recently taught me that's actually called the Rickshaw song. Now, take responsibility and learn from your mistakes. Do not double down. I have no problem with anybody in this country wanting to put out their opinion. Problem is with an opinion is you have to be ready to accept challenges to your opinion. You have to be ready to do that. These celebrities, their egos insulate them from any challenge. They're right. They have the platform and they're on the right side of history. They don't have to explain themselves. We, the little people, do because we think differently. How could you think like that? So, the hypocrisy. And we're all drenched in hypocrisy. We're hypocritical beings. I recognize that. I'm a hypocrite. I can be. I try not to be. I work actively to not be a hypocrite. And I think when you have a very strong moral sensibility in your life, your value system, your morals, you can mitigate that. You can mitigate how much hypocrisy is in your life. But it'll always be there. It's a spinning cycle. It will always be there. There's no choice. It's humanity. We make bad decisions. We say bad things. Best thing you can do is take responsibility for those things that you say. depending, of course, on the context. If you make a joke, you shouldn't apologize. But if you hurt somebody truly, maybe you should suck it up and apologize. And I mean truly hurt somebody. I'm talking on a personal level here. I'm not talking about a comedian who tells a joke, who makes a rape joke, and while 98% of the audience finds it funny, 2 people don't find it funny. Meanwhile, the actual maybe person in the actual audience who's a rape victim find it funny. But somebody's offended on behalf. I don't know where I'm going for this. The thing is, you have to be ready for pushback no matter what your stance is. And if you just do nothing with it, as LeBron would do, you know, I mean, you're entitled to your opinion, you're entitled for your stance, but don't expect me to take you seriously. And when I say that, you then do not get to double down and call me whatever you want and then act a victim if I say, well, you're this. You can say I'm this with impunity and this is all you hear. And then I say, okay, if that's the game we want to play, I'll swing something back, and then quite literally this is what you hear. The shock and horror. How dare he? How dare... Because he's so right and he's so wrong. Well, why is he right? He's a celebrity. He's an entertainment. He has a more... Shut up. No, he doesn't. Entertainment posts, they have every right to harp on anything pertaining to how they feel about it. But you know what, when the hypocrisy comes back to bite you, how about you just own it? That's all I'm saying. Final thoughts. I did have an entertainment segment, but you know what? This is probably going to be... I've spoken about it in the past. The Tom and Jerry movie came out. It sucked. The whole adage, don't judge a book by its cover. Okay, I won't. But I will judge a movie by its trailer. Because it is the perfect indication of a future monetary transaction. And in this case, there will not be one. Thank you for the internet critics who actually went out and watched this trash. So that I don't have to. And I don't have to make a bad monetary decision. So... Big round of applause there for the 2 guys I think of, LS Mark and Chris Stuckman, who actually stuck that terrible movie out. Thank you. Now, the final piece. Rush Limbaugh was buried today, I believe today, a private ceremony in Missouri. Rest in peace to a titan of broadcasting. A man who was as controversial as he was immense. And I mean... immense in every sense of the word. I've recently started watching a lot of documentaries, a lot of archive footage about Rush and his thoughts. I find myself agreeing with him 90% of the time. Even with his satire, I can feel like I can agree with him in a lot of ways. The man was called every ist and ot and thing under the planet, and really, realistically, with a critical mind, you actually listen to what he had to say. No, he was none of these things. He really was a big fuzzball. Now, the key word here is big, because another thing that struck me last night when I was watching Rush on the Phil Donahue show, if you ever want to see for yourself, watch Rush Limbaugh with Phil Donahue. Couldn't be more opposite. And Rush takes him to task. Phil wasn't ready. He just was not ready to take on this guy. There's a confidence. There's an arrogance. There's a swagger in Rush Limbaugh. It's pretty incredible to watch, and it's intimidating. Not to mention that he's a big guy. And that's the big thing I noticed, is that people would make fun of his weight. Now, we all know who his detractors were. The left wing, progressives, the PC counterculture mob, whatever you want to call them. The hippies. These are the people who all derided Rush. And they would often say, you're fat. You're failed marriages. Nowadays, it's weird that it's like the script has been flipped, because now being fat is virtuous. Being single is virtuous. Being promiscuous is virtuous. I'm not saying that Rush was promiscuous. He was a married man at the end of his days. But he had gone through a couple of marriages. But there is a correlation there. There is a baseline argument to be made where things swapped. It was his ideas. So as long as you have the wrong idea from the majority, you're cannon fodder. You are targeted, and it could be for anything. It's ridiculous. It needs to stop. This whole culture needs to end at this point. It's ridiculous. I don't know. I saw a very good meme the other day. How does a generation that was raised on South Park, Family Guy, The Simpsons be such soft, ineffectual wusses when it comes to any kind of confrontation? And I will quite honestly say, I was there. I was that kid in school. I was soft, ineffectual, afraid for my life. Just didn't want to get in trouble. Just didn't want to make waves. But here I am now. And I'm doing what I love. I'm following my passion. And I get to talk to people who want to listen. If you don't like it, don't listen. I'm not going to hold you hostage. But if you do like what I have to say, how about you, give the channel a like, a subscribe, and maybe a share. Because that's it. It's very, very tough to talk to yourself for best part of 40 minutes. I think we're up to here. But these are my thoughts. Like them, love them. A lot of this was off the cuff. I'm very aware that I could have walked back over myself a couple of times. But you know what? I gave it a go. Why aren't you giving it a go? Until the next episode, which will be a West of the Waterford podcast with Brittany, complete with Brits Bits, pressing the presses. That's entertainment, maybe a bit of Twitterology in there. Until then, have a very pleasant evening. God bless, and we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.